This is a CJSR podcast.
Volunteer powered.
Listener supported.
Campus and community.
Radio.
Podcast. Radio and podcast.
Cakes.
Cake.
A store-bought cake.
Are they all chocolate? What are they?
Oh, there's a lot of complex flavors here.
$12, $5, and a homemade?
Could they differentiate based just on taste?
I'm 100% sure this is homemade.
I don't know.
What makes a professionally made cake?
We sort of value our cakes by what we're putting into them.
Hello everyone, and welcome to That's Food on CJSR. My name is Bobby Kainth, and I will be your host for today's episode. Here on That's Food, we are committed to revealing the story behind Edmonton's food, one meal at a time. Today we will be talking cakes. First, we will hear a blind taste test where my friends were challenged to taste the difference between different priced cakes. We will then hear an interview I had with one of the owners of The Art of Cake, Gloria Bednars, and her assistant Christine Reeve. We discussed their experiences with cake and their thoughts on the differences between cheap and expensive cakes. Without further ado, let's take a listen into the blind taste test to see how my friends did. Thanks for tuning into today's episode, everyone. In this blind taste test, I blindfolded two of my friends and presented them with a homemade cake, $5 cake, and $12 cake. Their goal was simple. They had to guess which cake was which based on taste alone. For everyone listening at home, cake number 1 was the $5 cake number 2 was the homemade cake, and cake number 3 was the $12 cake. Let's introduce the tasters and see if they were able to correctly guess each cake.
Hey there, my name's Bhavi Patel. I currently go to RMC right now, studying aerospace engineering.
My name's Yashvi. I'm Bobby's friend.
So are you excited to be trying some cakes?
I'm excited.
Oh yeah, I love cakes.
Do you think you're going to be able to guess all 3 of the cakes properly?
I'm ready to win this.
I don't know, you're a pretty good chef, so you might be able to confuse me with your cake, but 1 point for sure I think I can make.
Alright, so now that we know who our tasters are, let's hear what they thought about the first cake.
I just got a bunch of icing, but I can already tell it's like a store-bought cake.
Okay, it's kind of dry. It tastes good. It's not too sweet, I like that. But it's a little dry.
I'm gonna go with $5 right now, like preemptively. It just tastes like a store-bought cake.
$12, $5, and a homemade. I'll say $5.
Yeah, texture-wise it feels really familiar, and I usually just eat $5 cakes, so I'm gonna guess $5 for now, yeah. If something else blows me away, then I'll probably, like, oh, this could be like, you know, I'm gonna say $5 for now. Just keep it in the middle right now.
Interesting takes from both of them. Before we move on, I also want to note that our tasters were allowed to change their guesses after tasting each cake, and that their guesses were finalized after they tasted every single cake. Okay, folks, next, let's hear what the tasters thought about the second cake.
Oh, what? This is much more drier.
Okay, I think this is the $12 cake. There's hints of coconut. I wouldn't find that. Oh, there's a lot of complex flavors here.
It's good. More dry. Maybe I just got more of the cakey part and less frosting.
No, this is homemade. These are brown flavors. I'm 100% sure this is homemade. I would not find these kind of flavors in a store-bought cake in like the Western world, you know? Yeah, I forgot what it's called. Is it coconut or? I mean, there can be coconut cakes, but like this is much more subtler. Something that you just like, I can imagine, you know, something you add at home and you just sort of roll with it.
I'm gonna say it's homemade. It's good if it's homemade.
Okay, I'm gonna guess this is homemade. I'm pretty confident for now.
Looks like the tasters got a little confused with the second cake. Let's hear what they have to say about the third and final cake.
Oh no.
This one feels hefty.
Oh, this tastes like a $5 cake now. I'm gonna have to try some more.
So moist.
Bro, I'm not getting anything.
Oh, that's definitely a grocery store frosting, for sure. But I don't know. Is it 5 or 12?
The first one I ate was probably the $12 one. This one I'm eating right now is going to be the $5 one. And the one in the middle was the homemade one.
Kind of tastes like a 5 to me. It tastes like those cupcakes, but like a cake version.
I said the first one was familiar, but this is a lot more familiar to me now.
I'm gonna have to change it now because I said the second one was homemade. So maybe this one's a $5, and then one of the other two is a $12.
This is the $5 one. I'm pretty sure now.
What if I'm like completely failing at this? Maybe I just hype myself up too much, you know?
I'm gonna make a fool of myself when they're all wrong. Yeah, I'm gonna stop acting so confident because this one shook me up. I don't think I know what I'm doing anymore.
It sounds like that third cake really threw off the tasters on their initial guesses. After letting them think a little bit more, I asked them for their final order of which cake was which. Let's hear what they came up with.
My final guesses are going to be, first one is $12, second one is homemade, and third one is $5. And that's my final answer. I don't want to second guess myself either.
Okay. The third one was $5. The last one was $5. The first one was $12 and the second one was homemade.
I feel pretty confident about the second one being homemade just because of those unique flavors. The first and the last one were pretty similar, so that's why I know they're from outside, those last two. I'm just not sure which one is which now. So overall I'm like 85% confident in my answers.
Is that right?
They were all wrong, weren't they?
Alright, now that the tasters have finalized their guesses, I had them remove their blindfolds and showed them all 3 cakes at once. I then told them the correct answer to which cake was which. These were their reactions.
I'm actually curious to know what they are now.
So these are the 3 cakes.
Oh, they're not all chocolate. That's so sad.
Which one was the first one? Is it the first?
The first one is this one.
Okay, that looks $12.
Second one and the third one.
I think I was right. Yeah, the third one looks like it's $5. First one definitely looks more expensive, and this one definitely looks like it's homemade.
This one is definitely the third one that I had.
That's the third one?
Yeah, because that has the cupcake frosting. I recognize that anywhere. This is homemade, and that's the second one. And then that's the first one.
No, wait, there's Smarties in there. Why? You don't have Smarties at home? Okay, now I'm confused. Oh, no, the last one was homemade, wasn't it? Oh. Okay, now before you even tell me, I want to just by looking at them. I think the last one was homemade. It's a lot softer.
Yeah.
And there's sprinkles, which just, I don't know, it screams, these kind of sprinkles just scream homemade for some reason. The first one was $12, I think. Or no, the first one was the $5. And the second one was the $12 because it's got the Smarties in it and the complex flavors.
You didn't get all of them
Oh,
right?
this is homemade though.
You got the homemade one right.
Okay. They're switched.
And they're switched.
That's
So
$12
the Black Forest one is 5. And the cupcake frosting one is 12.
That's some $5 frosting, you guys. This is so much better.
Okay, so the first one that you ate, the Black Forest one, that was $5.
That was $5?
That was $5.
So my first answer was right. Then it changed to 12. Okay.
Your second one, so that one, the Smarties one,
Yeah.
that's the homemade.
Okay, so I was right about that. Oh,
Yeah.
whew.
And then the third one was the
Was it-
expensive one. So that was a
Really?
$12 cake.
Really? Okay.
If you went with the original, you would have been,
One right, pretty much.
yeah.
And if I went with my new after seeing it, I would have been all wrong. Dang.
So you went 1 for 3.
I'll be honest, I think the icing makes a big impact because the
Yeah.
icing for the expensive one felt cheap, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And yeah, icing has a huge impact on the quality of the cake, I think.
For sure.
Even though I don't like it that much, it does play a big difference.
So
Not
final
bad.
thoughts.
This was really good. I
Thoughts?
really like the homemade one. I don't know why I thought they were all chocolate, but this frosting is $5.
What are your final thoughts?
Oh, this is fun. I definitely I don't eat food blindfolded at all. I think I should do it more often just because it makes me concentrate on the flavors a lot more. So I can definitely, there's restaurants in Germany or something like that where it's completely pitch black and you eat food in complete darkness. And at first I was like, that sounds sketch because you don't know what you're eating. But after having experienced blind eating, I think I should try it a lot more often just because I can, really get a hang of the flavors.
Do you have any final thoughts about the experience?
I'll do it again.
Homemade one wins for sure. And second place, I gotta go to the $12 one tasted the worst. I'm gonna be real. The $5 one came in second for me. And yeah, the $12 was definitely the worst. Feels bad, but it is what it is.
Well, there you have it, folks. The tasters both were able to guess the homemade cake correctly, but could not guess the $5 and $12 cakes correctly. Huge thank you to Bhavya Patel and Yashvi Patel for being the tasters in this blind taste test. We will now be hearing the interview I did with Gloria Bednarz and Christine Reeve from The Art of Cake. Let's take a listen to that interview. Once again, I'll just quickly introduce myself for the listeners. My name is Bobby Kainth. I use he, him pronouns, and I am a podcast host and producer for CJSR's That's Food. And today I am joined by two lovely guests from a local cafe and bakery here in Edmonton called The Art of Cake. Would you guys just mind introducing yourselves for our listeners? Again, tell them a little bit about who you are and kind of what your roles are at The Art of Cake.
My name is Gloria Bednarz, and I am one of the owners of The Art of Cake. And this is my lovely Christine.
Yeah, I'm Christine Reeve, and I am assistant to the amazing owner / head pastry chef, Gloria.
Cool. Sounds good. So for both of you, actually, how did you both first kind of get into the whole baking industry?
I grew up on a farm here in Alberta, and grew up with a family of people that baked from scratch, and it just became a natural thing to, when it came to food, to be able to produce it myself in my own home. And the love of food was very important, and the meals were, everything from, from dessert, but to the main course, everything was always, we either grew it ourselves, we baked it ourselves, we made our own butter, things like that. And so when you understand where your food comes from and how it's so important with the quality of products that you're using, you learn to love it. And that's really my love for food came from my upbringing.
Yeah, for sure. That's super interesting. Yeah, for sure. Christine, do you have anything you want to share?
So I don't do any of the baking. I just assist Gloria on the back end of things. So I take care of the website and that kind of stuff, but I watch them work. And I've been here for almost 2 years, and it's sometimes my mind just gets blown on what they can do. And the things they make are just, it's so beautiful. There's times where I'm actually like, and then I taste it and it's just twice as good. So I've been very blessed to work with them and see what they do and see what they can create. So I definitely have a bigger appreciation for food working here for sure.
That's amazing. Since, like I said, this episode's a little bit more focused on cakes, how did you kind of first get involved in the cake business specifically, Gloria?
Well, I went to NAIT. I took the commercial cooking program. Always wanted to be a chef. And I got my first job working at the Four Seasons Hotel way back when, here in Edmonton. And the only position that was available was in the bake shop. And I thought, well, because they always hire internally, I thought I'd start in the bake shop, and I'd, when the position came up in the kitchen, I would move down to the kitchen. But my love for pastry was the day I set my foot in that bakery door. And I just never left. I just absolutely loved it. I loved the creative side of it. And, just because you can work with colors and different flavors. And I mean, yes, you can do that in the kitchen too, but we have a tendency to make more pretty yet more elaborate things in the bake shop. And I guess that's where once I had my foot in the door, I just never left. And it's been many years since.
So just to make sure, that was your first kind of experience, right?
Yeah, that was my first real job in the big city of Edmonton. Yeah. Coming from a small farming community. Yeah. Nice.
The Four Seasons is a pretty big place as well.
Yeah, it was back then.
So what happened next kind of after that experience with the Four Seasons?
Well, I was there for quite a while, and then I decided that I needed to expand a little bit of my resume, and I went and worked for a smaller restaurant, Cafe Select, which they opened up a restaurant and bar, which was a beautiful cafe, not too far from Four Seasons Hotel, right on 101st Street, and worked for, a lovely couple there, got some great experience. And it was, a nice different atmosphere. You were working with the bartenders, the coffee makers, all that kind of stuff. So it certainly was a stepping stone as to, what I knew that I wanted to sort of, whenever I opened my own place, what my place was going to look like. And so it was probably one of those positive experiences that was a pretty cool place to work. The atmosphere with the people, the staff was fantastic. And from there, I moved on to a catering company here in Edmonton. It was called Gourmet Goodies, run by Gail Hall, who was iconic in the city. She passed away a couple of years ago, so it was a huge loss for the city. But again, it was a different part of the industry that, the experience was so valuable. And again, worked with some amazing people. And it just gave me that whole round of thing of what the potential of your business could be, from catering to the restaurant, cafe, to the hotel. So I just, took in all the best from all of those different aspects of the business and created a place now that we're all those elements.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of want to start by asking about cakes that are expensive versus cakes that are inexpensive. So in your opinion, how does expense factor into the experience of a cake's taste?
There are a lot of, bakeries that could sell you an expensive cake, but it may not necessarily be a good cake. And I don't necessarily believe that our cakes are the most expensive either. I think we sort of value our cakes by what we're putting into them. We go through, cases of whipping cream, cases of butter, tons of eggs. And so it's the products that we're putting in that you sort of come up with a base price of what you need to charge. And then when we look at customization of cakes, which a lot of people do, they want some personalization on the cake that's going to reflect a piece of them or the person that's receiving it as a birthday, it's a wedding or whatever. And so that's where the additional charges come in. I often say that, you don't really need a huge piece of cake to be satisfied. But if that cake is good, that's even a better bonus, because then that piece of cake is delicious and you want more, but it's satisfying to have one piece, right? I know as a parent and going to people's birthday parties and having, the superstore quality cakes and stuff like that. My kids would always go, yeah, no, that's okay, I won't have any. And it was funny because I always enjoyed it, because for me it was different. It was different cake than what I made, right? But my kids got to a point where they just got fussy. It's like, yeah, no, I'll pass, And, I never really taught them that. It was just something there, they just realized that, yeah, it looks good and it looks fun because it's got some cute decorations and stuff on it. But flavor wise, yeah, they'll pass, right? So it really is a personal taste. Some people really love the grocery store type cakes, and they're not all bad. And it really just depends on what your occasion is. If you're just going out to the park and you just need a strawberry cake with some strawberry, topping on it and some whipped cream, great, go to the grocery store. If you're going to be sitting down for a nice dinner, you're invited some people over, there's 6 of you and you want a nice piece of dessert that will complement the beautiful dinner that you made, well, then maybe that's when you want to go to a higher priced item and make sure that your guests are wowed by the dessert rather than, oh yeah, that was okay.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with you about the whole experience with, I know, like, I kind of grew up eating store-bought cakes. So it was always that kind of taste that was unique to me.
They really have their purpose. And, I mean, there's moments where, for us, it's Dairy Queen. My kids absolutely love Dairy Queen cakes, right? Because it's something that we don't make, and it's different because they can have our delicious cake anytime, right? I always get funny when my daughter will message me and say, Mom, can you bring home a piece of cake? And I'm like, oh my God, you have so many sweets at home, but she wants me to bring cake home, So, I'm always amazed that she still likes to eat the cake, right? But it's great.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that kind of leads me to my next question. So you kind of touched a bit on the ingredients, and for sure ingredients play a major part in just baking the cake and the whole tasting experience. So again, I kind of want to ask, what kind of ingredients do you use on a regular basis when you kind of prepare your cakes?
A lot of butter, a lot of eggs. So we try to buy things as local as possible. That's not always easy in what we do. Chocolate, things like that aren't produced or manufactured here. So, obviously we're not like, we can't go to the local grocer and get, a slab of pork or beef or whatever, that's not going to happen. So there are a certain percentage of our ingredients that we have to buy from, distributors that, bring things in from Europe and, things like that. But we do always try to use the best quality ingredients that we can. But there are times where, you're at the mercy of the market. Obviously with COVID, we've had lots of shortages on certain items because, manufacturers have had to close because someone's had COVID or whatever. So there's been certain disruptions in the network for sure. And I mean, that affects all of us from creating something that we might have been easier before, maybe isn't quite so simple right now. But, again, we just always try our best.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I know like you've kind of been in the business for quite a while. So has your ingredient choices differed since when you kind of first started out in the business?
I don't think so. I think, one thing, because my husband is in business with me. We both started at the Four Seasons. We were both at the Four Seasons Hotel. That's how we met. And, one of the things that was really important to us was the quality of what it is that we were creating. And as the industry sort of evolved and changed, and the hotels changed from having pastry shops to boxed items of savory or whatever, like they'd start bringing in their cases of pastries and stuff like that because they were trying to trim, payroll and things like that. And that was a part that, my husband and I were always like, well, it's not really the route that we want to go, and we were like, we're almost in that, well, are we going to become obsolete as employees, right? So you look at it, the overall picture, and you say, well, how can I continue to do and create the best things that I know how in this evolving market? And we just said, well, I think maybe it's time that we opened our own place, so we started small. We opened our doors at a farmer's market, making things from our own kitchen, to leasing a little bit of kitchen space in another business. We just took all these little steps because we never wanted to sort of expand ourselves further than what we were capable of doing. Obviously, it was just him and I. And at one point, he was the one that was doing the majority of the baking because I was still working a full-time job. And so we did everything quite conservatively moving forward with our business. And now we have, about 18 employees. Most of those, we have about 10 full-time employees. So we have just been extremely blessed. And, I think those values that we brought with us are why a lot of the people that work with us now are with us. Some of them I worked with at different establishments through my career. And when they show up at your doorstep and they say, hey, I saw that you're looking for someone. I'd love to come work for you. It just means that what you're doing is right. And the relationships that you've created with these people it's awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. And I don't know if you will be able to touch on this, but I know you said that you did a lot of baking when you were living in Alberta. So I kind of want to ask, do you have any kind of idea of the ingredients that are usually kind of substituted in maybe homemade cakes or store-bought cakes versus kind of the professionally made cakes?
Well, a lot of box mix, people will usually start with the mix to start. Some people might use margarine because they, the price of butter, but honestly, I think, the price of some margarines, I think it can really get up there. But, I think probably one of the trends that's happening now is more of like the vegan or the vegetarian options, right? And I think as, more and more people choose that, lifestyle, which I think is great. I mean, there's certain times I think I eat too much meat too, and I'd love to go that route, but creating something from the products that are available are definitely a lot easier now than it used to be. But, it's really, and we do have, some gluten-friendly products in our kitchen. We have some some vegan-friendly products as well. We don't have a huge number of them because if they don't really taste good, we won't make them. So when we do add a new product, it usually comes fairly slow because we want to make sure that I want everybody to enjoy it. It doesn't matter if it's gluten-free or if it's vegan. If you like cake, it's going to taste good. And so that's what I'm always sort of looking for when we're creating new products. But, I know, again, growing up on the farm, we made our own butter. So for us, I didn't really know what margarine is. Well, it was, right? And so when I had it for the very first time, I thought, well, this is so cool, right? But as you grow up and whatever, it's like, yeah, no, I don't really have any of that in my house. So it's always changing. It's always evolving, right? And it's just staying on top of the trends and things like that and making sure that we have something that sort of satisfies everybody out there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Frosting is a pretty big thing, so I kind of want to touch on that as well. I love frosting. What kind of frosting do you normally make?
We have we have a buttercream that I've been using for years, and again, lots of butter. And there's a couple of secret ingredients in there. People always say, "Was it Italian buttercream or is it this buttercream?" Oh, it's none of those. It's something that my husband and I developed over the years, and it's something that we've used. It holds up really well if we're doing a 5-tier wedding cake. It's not overly sweet, so the person that doesn't like a ton of sugar can enjoy it. So it's that middle of the road. It satisfies everybody, but we can dolly it up by adding chocolate in it, make a nice beautiful chocolate buttercream. We can make raspberries, so we can use it, and it's so versatile, and it just holds really well, like I said, when we're doing a large wedding cake or something like that. And obviously there are issues when we're dealing with extreme heat. I mean, that goes for any type of buttercream, but yeah, it's great, and we make lots of it. So I think a lot of people are always so happy because like, yeah, I loved your buttercream, it wasn't overly sweet, so it's good.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of segues into the next set of questions I want to ask. So I know baking in general has a lot of techniques. So I kind of want to ask you about the kinds of techniques that you kind of use when you make your cakes at the Art of Cake, if you can share that.
I think for us, what's most important is I love a good ratio of buttercream to cake. I find myself when you have a piece of cake somewhere and you got this big, thick piece of cake and you got this little tiny bit of cream. I'm not hugely fond of that. I like, if I'm going to have a bite of cake, I want a nice little bit of cream and a little bit of cake. I want that proportion to be just right. So, it goes down really good with my coffee. So we're always making sure that happens. And we're always making sure that the cakes aesthetically look pleasing. Most of our decorations are handmade. Our flowers are handmade with modeling chocolate. So again, we're just always trying to be a little different than everybody else in town. We kind of have our own style. And there's just certain things that you like. And I know that we don't please everybody's flavor profile or everybody's aesthetics, but we have a huge following. And those are the people that have come back to us when we've done, the wedding cake to the anniversary cake to the baby cake to the, where I'm hoping that, in a few years I can start making graduation cakes for some of these kids that I made the gender reveal for, you know what I mean? And so it's a beautiful community that we have that have supported us over the years. And I like to think that we're doing something right because they're still with us, which is fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. And the next kind of question I want to ask, what would you say kind of tends to be the most common mistake when baking a cake at home or in general in the shop maybe?
I think a lot of people don't realize that they've made a dry cake, like between baking the cake and putting the cake together. A lot of home bakers might work on their cake for 2 or 3 days and not thinking that cake is sitting there. I think one of the biggest complaints that we get from a lot of customers that have either gone somewhere else or had something that someone else made for them, like people are so awesome. They'll, I know I can make you a cake. I've got a little experience because they're trying to be budget friendly. And so, but unfortunately they've worked on the cake for a week and the fondant is hard. Do you know what I mean? I think that's one of the biggest mistakes is that, this cake's been worked on for a week. So it's sat on someone's counter. Of course, the fondant's going to be hard because it's dry, right? And so we get a lot of people that come to us and say, oh, I hate fondant. I hate fondant. It's so dry. It's disgusting. And I said, well, you know what? Fondant really isn't a bad thing. It's just how it was applied, right? So I think that making sure that, that you're not applying the fondant too early, that, all of those things are so important. And I think, and again, it's just for me personally, it's educating my client to know that, fondant isn't a bad thing. We do a lot of buttercream cakes, but I can do you a fondant cake if that's what you'd like. But it will be fairly thin. The fondant's going to be thin and it's not going to be rock hard because we're not going to put it on 2 or 3 days prior to you consuming the cake. It's going to go on either the day before or the morning of. And that's just knowing the product and the experience, I guess,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I also kind of want to change a little bit of gears now and kind of talk about the equipment. What kind of equipment do you tend to use in the shop?
Parchment paper is a must. It's an absolute must. If I had to pick 5 things out of my bake shop that I would take with me, it'd be parchment paper, my turntable, my offset, probably some cookie cutters, and my piping bags and tips. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. For our viewers who want to get into cake baking, what is one piece of advice that you would like to give them?
Just have fun with it. I think it's a great, thing to share with your kids, share with your partner. It can be very relaxing. Some people can be very stressful. Don't stress about it if your cake's not perfect. It's really the enjoyment you had making it. It's the enjoyment, hopefully, sitting down and eating it with a friend. And the fact that you made something, you created something, just take away from that it was, that you had some fun. And, always, think, well, how could I do it better next time? Right. But if your cake's a flop, I'm sure it still tastes good. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really great answer. Yeah. But yeah, perfect. Those are all the questions that I had. Thank you so much, Gloria. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you about the differences between inexpensive or homemade cakes and kind of the expensive professionally baked cakes. And once again, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your stories and thoughts with us and our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of this week's episode of That's Food. Today's episode was produced by me, Bobby Kainth, with help from the That's Food team. Once again, I'd like to thank Gloria and Christine for speaking with me, as well as Bhavya and Yashvi for being the tasters in the blind taste test. To learn more about The Art of Cake and what they do, you can visit them at www.theartofcake.ca. Our music is by Doug Hoyer, and you can find all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and on our website, that'sfood.transistor.fm. You can contact us at that'sfood@cjsr.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at that'sfoodcjsr. That's Food is produced at CJSR in Edmonton on Treaty 6 territory. But is it food?
That's food.
That's
No, I messed it up.
Sorry, I didn't.
Again, yeah, I'm not counting down. I'm not counting it down. It's too much.